Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Amicable Academy, which is our public education that is open to the public, to professionals, and to anybody who is interested in our topic. And it's hosted by the Amicable Divorce Network, and I'm the Amicable Divorce Network founder, Tracy Ann Moore Grant. We have a really great speaker this month, and this topic comes up in family law time and time again. I actually was telling Teresa that I just had it come up yesterday. And so it is an issue that leads to a lot of conflict in families. And of course, one thing that we are passionate about in the network is reducing conflict and helping people move together forward in a much better and healthier way. And so today we have with us Teresa Harlow, and she has been successfully co-parenting for over 20 years herself. So she has been in the trenches, and she has written 2 books on the topic. Her latest book is called Combative to Collaborative, the Co-Parenting Code, and it's endorsed by best-selling authors Jack Canfield and Gary Chapman. And I have this book, it's here in my office, and it's a great resource. Anybody that wants it, you can get it off Amazon. Now in her role as author, speaker, and collaboration champion, Teresa helps individuals and teams adopt an empathetic mindset, reconcile combative behaviors, and enjoy a more collaborative relationship. We are going to be turning it over to Teresa now for her excellent presentation, which is focused on introducing new adults to the equation. So the parties are divorced and now somebody else has a new relationship. A lot of times that doesn't go well, but Teresa has some tips to help everybody out. Teresa?
Thank you, Tracy, for having me today. And I want to thank everyone that's decided to take time out of your day to join us for doing that and investing in yourself. So I hope you find something valuable out of this session and you can apply it to your life. So let's talk about new love. Oh, what a great feeling it is, right? You meet someone, they tell you you're beautiful, you laugh at their stupid jokes, and then you want everyone to know about it. You're ready for your do-over and your do better. Except in this story, you're divorced with kids, which is a little bit different than the first time around. Now you have others to consider. You have an ex-spouse or an ex-partner, and you have your kids. As Tracy mentioned, I'm Teresa Harlow. I am the author of the book Combative to Collaborative, the Co-Parenting Code, and I have been a co-parent for 22 years. I've also been a step-parent for 14 years. My son was 6 years old when his father and I divorced, and he's now 28, and he'll tell you we did a good job. So yay for us. And I've been a step parent, or my stepdaughter is 24 and my stepson is 21. And they'll tell you it took some time. And I'd say a good 10 years before I really got to a point where I could say we have a happy blended family. So the topic of blending families and blending relationships is vast. So today we're going to deal with one aspect of that. So in this life after divorce, introducing new adults into the equation, specifically the literal introduction is what we're mostly talking about. And we'll do that in 3 ways. First, we'll cover how you might introduce your new someone to the ex. Then we'll dive into if you're being introduced and you are the ex, so your ex-partner is introducing you to their new romantic partner. And third, we'll talk about how to introduce your kids to this new someone that's in your life. So with that, I want to kick things off with a super short video clip. Hang tight with me.
Great. Could we hear it?
I'll start with the cover. Picture this. You got,
Dad! I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
Okay, I told you it was short. So why did I show that clip? You know, first of all, I love Elf and it's funny. But second of all, it demonstrates that overwhelming feeling we all feel about new love, and how we just want to shout it from the mountaintops and make sure everyone knows we're happy again. And so it's really easy to get carried away with that and forget to honor your existing relationships as you approach this topic with them. So, how are some of the ways this can go badly? Well, I've observed quite a few different approaches over the years, which I encapsulate in my book, and I'll share a few of them with you here. So, combative approaches include introducing the person too soon. How well do you know this person? Is it really time to take that next step? Are they even in favor of meeting your ex-spouse? Probably something to talk about with them. If you don't have a good grasp of their stability, whether it's mental, health wise, or financially, you probably need to be more patient and wait a bit to learn the new person. Let's face it, when we're in a new relationship, we tend to kind of suppress our idiosyncrasies and things for a good 3 to 6 months before we start revealing that side of us. And so give yourself some time and make sure to involve this new partner in the conversation before you go out and tell your ex-spouse, and then have your new partner tell you, oh, really? I thought we were just messing around. So that would be super awkward. Also, try to avoid doing this introduction to the actual party in public. Now, if there's a concern for your safety because there's a history of some kind of violent behavior and interactions from this ex-spouse, then maybe in public is a better choice for you. But you could also choose to do it remotely, whether on the phone or in some other mode. But in general, don't put your ex-spouse in a scenario where they're kind of on the spot and have no room to really respond thoughtfully. Think about how you might feel if you were given, this information in public. So that's one thing to consider. Also, try to avoid accidentally having to introduce the person. How do you avoid accidents like that? Super simple. Don't have them answer your phone, drive your car, answer the door at your house, or certainly cart your kids around if the other parent hasn't met them yet. And while we're on that topic, I think that it's advisable in most cases for you to take the time to introduce the new person to the co-parent first. And the way I would approach this is maybe doing this incrementally. When you talk to your ex-spouse about it, first, maybe just broach the topic of, hey, I've started to date again, without bringing up anyone in particular. Let them absorb and get used to that idea, and then mention, I have started dating Joe for a while. We've been together 3 months or whatever the time frame is, and I'd really like you to meet him. And then go from there into the actual bringing Joe along, or Josephine, to your meeting with your ex. What you don't want to see happen is having the kids come home and tell them, oh, mom was with a guy all weekend and they spent the time at our house. It just gets to be a little bit awkward for everyone and calls a whole bunch of things into question that you can avoid. Springing it on them at an event might be lacking in thought and cause them to wonder if you really care about their relationship with you. Failing to anticipate anger on their part is another one that some people don't really think through, because they may think, well, we don't care about each other in that way anymore, so he's just going to be happy for me, or she's going to be happy that I've found someone else. They may be, but the first thing they might think is, wow, that just drove a stake through a once promising relationship. Or they might be concerned about this person's new role with your children and how that plays out for them. So do try to anticipate that there could be some anger or anxiety on their part, and think about how you might respond to that. I have a friend whose mom introduced the new boyfriend to the dad when her ex showed up at her door, and the boyfriend answered it. And let me tell you, it didn't go so well. The guy answers the door and dad goes, "Who are you?" And he sees his kids in there with this perfect stranger to him. And it just set things up for a less than ideal situation. So it was a combined accidental, and mom didn't tell her ex that she was even dating, much less that someone was actually, had met her kids. So that's just one example of how things can play out in ways that really aren't ideal. So for collaborative do's and don'ts, when it comes to the equation, tell them in private if they're not violent, and if they have a tendency to anger management issues, you can use a remote means of communicating with them, but you will eventually have to tell them. Tell them before you tell the kids, so that they feel like you're honoring the parenting position that they hold. And by all means, don't gush. And you might be thinking, of course, I'm not going to gush. I'm not stupid. But look, it's easy to do when we get carried away with the excitement of having found someone special. And so we have to be careful of making the distinction between telling our ex about someone and making sure they understand this person is safe to be around our kids, they're successful, versus this person makes a lot of money and they're really awesome and you're just going to love them, and really kind of going out there. Look, our friends don't even like it when we gush too much. So just be cognizant of that and discuss it with the new person before doing it. Talk about how you're going to do it, when, where, what you're going to say, and make sure that you two are on the same page before taking it to that next step. Considerations to keep in mind that'll help you remain aligned to collaborative behaviors. First, and I give this throughout all of my coaching on co-parenting, honor the golden rule. The golden rule is to treat others the way we want to be treated. We can't always envision how our ex might want to be treated. Maybe that's why you broke up, because you couldn't get on the same page. But you certainly know what feels good for you to hear or not hear. So if you can avoid doing things you wouldn't want to be exposed to, then that's going to make for a more likely positive interaction. So honor the golden rule and focus on what's important. What is important between the two of you as co-parents is to be good parents and to remain collaborative so that you can communicate and trust each other as parents, and make sure to prepare. Okay. So does anyone have an a specific kind of introduction that they've either been part of to share? I would invite you to type it into the chat, just say, yeah, it was really awful, or it went well, or give us some kind of thing. It was done on a Post-it note. That just reminds me of an old Sex and the City episode where Carrie was broken up with on a Post-it note. But anyway, I digress. So, just feel free to share that in the chat. And I'll move on right now to our next segment, which is your ex is introducing their new someone to you. All right. And I have another clip for you.
Good evening. Welcome to the run. Oh, hell no.
You said you wanted to meet my new girlfriend? Ta-da! Christy, Candace, Christy.
Is this awkward? Because we could move to another table. No. This is fine. Nice to meet you. Oh, same here. You know, Baxter's told me all about how you've turned your life around. Good for you.
I think you guys are gonna be best friends.
We're certainly off to a great start.
I don't know. You think they're going to be best friends? So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the series Mom, which came to an end last year, but I just love how they're able to really capture human moments like this and all of the things we go through. So I kind of think maybe Baxter missed my class because he didn't follow a whole lot of what I just suggested. And we can kind of recap some of those things. First of all, one thing that he did right. Can anybody think of what it was? Just type it in the chat if you can think of it. I will tell you. He introduced Christy to the idea that he was dating again before introducing Candace to her. We know this because he said, you said you wanted to be my new girlfriend. Ta-da. And the ta-da is our little cue there that this was a complete surprise, which obviously it was. But he did it at her work and he obviously in public. And the other really awkward thing about this particular exchange is that he put Christy in a subservient role to them by having her position to serve them food. So that's the more subtle thing that some of us don't think through when we plan out our interactions with an ex. And we just expect them to take it. But if we think about how we would feel in that scenario, then maybe we would choose differently. Now, let's talk about Christy. How did she handle the scenario? I think, given the circumstances, she handled it with absolute grace. And, she could have done lots of other things there, albeit a little bit awkward for her to have had a violent or, an emotional reaction because she was at work. Sometimes we can't help ourselves. She chose, however, to not react emotionally and to smile through it. And so I give her kudos for that. And plenty of us have smiled through awkward moments, right? So you can feel for her. But some of the combative approaches that people can take in response to how their ex chooses to introduce them to their new someone. You can react emotionally. And, I get it. We're all human. But in the end, if you keep that focus on what's important, you can get through that moment. And regardless of how you react to it, it already is in the past. So they can't undo it and choose differently. So you'll deal with that moment and walk through it to the next phase. Another thing that happens, and something that Christy could have done, was choose not to give this woman a chance. I mean, she did come across a little bit passive aggressive, right? So she could go down the same path, but would that serve her purpose? Well, not really, because she needs Candace to be on her team if she's going to be spending a lot of time with her son. Focusing too much on how your ex told you about the new person can also put you on negative footing with them. Focusing on things that have already, went behind you, that are already past, will not serve your purpose going forward. And also, pressuring your kids to dislike someone because of your concerns about, maybe some jealousy or feeling like you're going to be replaced can be a difficult thing to avoid doing. But I would suggest that you work very hard to not pressure your kids to either dislike the new person or favor you over them, in spite of whatever concerns you might have in that regard. And also, not talking them down to your kids. Don't allow them to talk to allow them to talk the new person down, and really be careful of who you're speaking with in a negative way about either your ex or a new person in their life, because it could get back to them and it's only going to circumvent your efforts to remain positive. If you need to confide in someone, make sure it's someone that you know will not go beyond the two of you, and go and do your venting. So an ex-wife, friend of mine who met her exes, knew someone, found out about this person after her son came home from being at his dad's all weekend. And he proclaimed to his mom, "Daddy has a new girlfriend. She was at our house all weekend." And of course, mom didn't even know that dad was dating again. And how did she respond? She could have chosen to call him up and confront him about this and, gotten into it with him. But instead, she chose grace. She knew that her ex-husband was a non-confrontational sort of person and was probably avoiding just having the conversation to begin with. So she chose to enroll this woman as a member of her parenting team. She called her ex-husband, asked to speak with the woman. She was there. They planned a lunch, and they had a lunch. They talked about both of their sons. Turned out they had sons that were similar in age, and they helped each other to make sure to bring those kids together so they got to know each other, and also work to make sure that they both had the information needed to ensure that the son could get to all of his events, because the father, frankly, was a little disorganized. So the ex-wife enrolled the new person in her ex-husband's life as a team member, someone else to collaborate with and help her to raise their son positively. So she turned a potentially negative into a positive by taking that graceful response. So collaborative do's and don'ts. Give them a chance. And when I'm talking them, I'm talking in this case, the new person. Get to know them. Take time to meet with them for coffee or lunch. Find out about them. Look, they're going to be spending time with your child. Hopefully you get to meet them first, but if that doesn't happen, then it's all the more important that you understand what this person's about. Start off by considering them an ally and encouraging positive talk from your kids about the new person. You can deal with any feelings too that you have of jealousy or fear that they're going to replace you by going to a therapist or talking to a friend that doesn't interact necessarily with these other two, so it doesn't get back to them. But deal with that and realize that if you are a good parent, if you are providing your children with love and support and everything they need to thrive and doing your best in that regard, they're not going to abandon you. And this new person may have a place in their heart, but it'll be a distinctly different place that person will occupy from their mother or father. So considerations to kind of keep you in the right mindset on this one. Treat your ex the way you would want to be treated, rather than how they might deserve to be treated. Hear that distinction? A lot of times when someone treats us crappy, we just want to go, man, I just want to get back at them. But it doesn't serve our long-term purpose. It may feel good in the moment, but it really works against you going forward, because remember what's important: to be a good parent, to preserve that amicable, collaborative relationship with the co-parent. So treat your ex the way you would want to be treated, not the way they deserve to be treated. Okay. If anyone has had an interesting way in which they've been introduced to their exes knew someone that they feel like commenting in the chat, feel free to share that now. And while you do that, I'm going to set us up for the next segment, which is, hey, honey, want to meet my kids? And this is where we get into introducing your children to someone new in your life. And so you got it. I'm going to play another clip for you. And hopefully this one keeps up. I think the last one might have lagged, and I apologize for that.
Father, who is our new governess going to be?
Well, you're not going to have a governess anymore.
We're not?
No. You're going to have a new mother.
A new mother?
We talked about it last night. It's all settled. And we're all going to be very happy.
Okay, they're all going to be very happy. Did you hear? And we've set it up quite nicely. That was obviously from The Sound of Music. And while the scenario is slightly different, as Captain Von Trapp is a widow, there are similarities in this. And the things I was trying to demonstrate here are that, you know, he was setting this woman up to be the new mother. And the kids are like, wait a minute, we had a mother. Now, while their parent has passed, in these scenarios we're talking about, in most cases, the parent is still living. So it's even less appropriate to go down the path of this is your new mother. But in all fronts, it's just so much pressure. I mean, really, I think it just sets up an expectation that's unreasonable and doesn't give people room to kind of grow into their roles. So Captain Von Trapp, you know, had good intentions, but I think he could have done better. So I get it. You're seeing as you want to spend more time with this new person. And now in order to do that, you're going to need to introduce them to your kids, because otherwise that's the other time that you have. And you want to create that family 2.0. You want everyone to just love everyone immediately. But hold on, let's slow things down a bit. Let's talk about the combative approaches that could derail that effort. We talked about some of these when we were talking about the new someone being introduced to your ex, and some of them are similar. So doing it too soon. In this case, I think the concern about too soon, there's two things really. It's really important, if you're going to expose your children to a new person, that you're sure this person is a safe individual. So even more important to get to know them in this case, because they are going to be spending time in their presence, whereas your ex may not be as much. And if you have too many different people that you're parading in front of your kids, it can get confusing for younger kids, and it can get concerning for older kids wondering about your lifestyle. And you may present an impression to them that you didn't really mean to by introducing them too soon to too many potential partners. Your kids are not an appropriate source for you to evaluate someone against, at least in the initial run. But, you know, of course, after they meet them, they will have an opinion that you'll want to find out about. Introducing the person as a new mommy or daddy is just a bridge too far. It's so much pressure on everyone. So I would encourage you to think about other titles that you can eventually associate. Don't associate any titles coming out of the gate. Just say, this is my friend Joe, and I'd like you to get to know him. And maybe you can, you know, Joe is very special to me, or something like that. But the mommy or daddy thing can be left for later. And quite frankly, it should be reserved for the parents, at least in my opinion. And you can come up with new titles. I know that step parent has been around forever, and some people hate it, some like it. bonus mom or bonus dad is another one that some people have varying reactions to. Personally, I kind of like the idea of bonus mom because it sounds like a positive. You're bringing something to the table. So that one works for me. Whatever you do when you make this introduction, be realistic, because you're going to have to give everyone an opportunity and time to adjust to each other and the idea. Not asking that new person in advance if they're ready for this step is also a big no-no. Maybe they don't even want to meet your kids. And by the way, if they don't want to meet your kids, maybe this isn't a relationship that's going to work out because you do have kids. So having that conversation would surface that kind of difference in opinion, or maybe they're just not ready because maybe they're not a new parent themselves, or it's just not the right time for other reasons. So get on the same page. In the meantime, until you are ready to introduce your children to this new person, avoid accidental interruptions. One of the easiest ways to do that is to not have kids them and they end up meeting the new person right then and there. I'm sure you can handle it if it happens, but it would be a thoughtful thing to try to avoid that. And hopefully I'm still coming through. I just got like a little notice that my internet was unstable in case something happens.
You're good, Teresa.
Okay, thanks. But anyway, in public also wouldn't be a kind thing to do for your kids for the same reasons that I gave you for the parent. Give everyone space to react in whatever emotional capacity is right for them, and don't put them on the spot to have to suppress that. And I do, again, encourage you to actually introduce the co-parent before introducing the kids, and let the co-parent know you're going to introduce the kids to your new someone. So those are some of the combative things that people do that can be avoided. So a mom that I'm familiar with told her kids that the new person was their new dad upon the introduction. And she did something else that was also a bit unsettling and caused all kinds of problems with her co-parent and the kids from that moment. Very shortly after she introduced this person into their lives, he moved into the home and began immediately placing his own restraints on various behaviors. The actual father wasn't allowed to come to the door to pick up the kids. The kids had to abide by certain rules that he set. If the father was at soccer practice together with this future step parent, he was told that he shouldn't be there. So if you start seeing signs like this, these are red flags. And look, you get the behavior that you allow. So you need to address certain concerns as you see them surface. You can set expectations of what kind of boundaries are appropriate and feel good to you, and come to an agreement on those. And if you can't come to an agreement on them, it's a sign of something the two of you either need to work on, or that may be a deal breaker for your relationship. But I would just caution you to be cognizant of someone coming into your life and starting to impose rules on your family too quickly. So collaborative do's and don'ts. First off, I highly recommend setting a waiting time frame, ideally that you and your ex will both abide to. Say, I'm not going to introduce anyone to our kids until we've been together for 6 months or 3 months, or whatever is right for you two. Minimize the introductions of the number of people you put in front of your kids. And if you see that you're still having a lot of introductions, expand your time frame. Maybe you're getting to 3 months with a lot of people, but then you break up with everyone in the 4th month, and maybe 6 months is better for you. Tell your co-parent about the introduction that you plan with the kids, ideally before, so that they can kind of be prepped to be on the lookout for the kids' emotional reactions. Be realistic and patient. Don't expect everyone to love everyone immediately. Include the new person in your plan, just as I suggested you do with the ex. And do a fun activity, something you can all do together that affords you the opportunity to have conversation, like miniature golf or a card game or bowling or a board game. And be aware of any concerns and address them as they surface, so that the two of you can remain in lockstep as to what to expect from one another and how to appropriately interact with your kids. Be observant and ask the ex what the kids are saying about this new person. Be careful of favoritism, though. And when I say favoritism, I mean, be careful of favoring your kids without being fair to this new person, because the reality is often children will be defensive of their parent over a new person entering the scene. And so you have to kind of go down into that a little bit deeper to figure out what's really going on, to be fair to the new person and make sure it's not just that the kids are being unnecessarily cruel to this new party because they think they're defending their other parent. So, considerations. Think of how this introduction will sound and feel to your kids. If you're a child of divorce, this might be an easy task for you. You went through it. You knew how it felt, and how would you not want it to feel for your kids? For me, I wasn't in that place, so I had to theoretically get there. And I thought of the two concerns I had were that I wanted my child to feel safe with this new person, and I didn't want him to think that I was about to replace his father. So that is the concerns that I put at the forefront of my thinking when I planned the introduction and chose my words very carefully. Remember your kids' safety, preserve the child-parent relationship at all costs, but also be fair to the new person and set them up for successful interactions with your kids. Now, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tracy so that we can do the question and answer stuff.
All right, so we have a question from Dana. We've talked about the actual introduction to the children, but what steps do you suggest parents take to prepare the children for that meeting, and how much lead up time do you think is appropriate?
Lead up time, it's kind of dependent. I hate to use this, it depends, but it does. It depends greatly on their age, how many children we're talking about. What do you need to do to orchestrate them all being there together? Something I do recommend is trying to get all the kids. If you have many kids, try to introduce everyone at the same time so that someone, one of the kids doesn't feel left out of this potentially monumental event in their life, right? So, I'd say that. The other part of the question, I already forgot. Can you remind me?
How much lead up time? And I mean, I guess that's sort of a case by case basis. How do you prepare the children from their perspective? Yeah, and the time.
So preparing the kids, I think taking that trying to think of the word, the incremental approach, again, with them, just like you do with the ex. Introduce the idea that, and this depends on their age again, what wording you use and how much you have to really break it down for them. For younger kids, it's probably okay to just, hey, mommy's got a new friend, and introduce them. And you don't really have to go any deeper than that. For older kids, you may have to really be a little more concerned about them being protective of that other parent. So introduce the concept that you're dating someone. get them used to the idea, give them a little time to work through that, and then say, look, I'd really like you to meet Joe. If you've done it right, you've already introduced Joe, and I keep using Joe, but it could be anyone. You've already introduced Joe to their dad or your other parent. And so you can tell them that, and you can say, look, Joe has already met your father. Your dad seems to be very comfortable with him. Now, if that's not the case, you may have to go down a different path of communicating, but you can just say they met your father and move on. But that will give them some level of comfort in it. And then maybe involve the kids in what you want to do so that they feel part of the planning of this meeting. Would you like to go bowling or something they like to do that will ease the tension and take it into a place of just a fun activity that you're all going to do together?
Do you find that there's any sort of problematic age where children sort of transition, I guess, from this younger sort of oblivion, like mommy, daddy has a new friend, to it being sort of like, in our practice, I think we often hear age 7 or 8 is sort of where kids start to really have major adjustment issues. Do you find that to be the case?
Well, it's funny. It's going to show my age here. My son's 28. And I think kids are advancing more quickly in their maturity than they did when my son was younger. So I don't think I would have been concerned at 7 or 8. My son was 6 and there was absolutely none of that. But I think the older they are, if you're saying 7 or 8, I'm actually kind of surprised by that. I would think it'd be more at least at the middle school level before they really give it. And it probably matters whether it's girls or boys, right?
Yeah.
I'd say girls probably younger, maybe 9, 10-ish, and boys maybe a little later. And I know that it's usually the older they are, the more difficult this transition is for them because they're more ingrained in their life as it is, right? However, if they've had a tumultuous existence with 2 high conflict parents, it may also be a breath of fresh air for the kids that are in high school, right? It's like, thank God. So don't always think you're doing the best thing to stay with someone. That's like
we definitely hear that a lot. We see a lot of parties wait till the kids are going off to college, and then that's a whole other amicable academy on another day. I think the parties that wait to do that and how the kids feel about that. But before we end the recording, I just wanted to tell you I'm going to steal a quote from you, and I'm going to put it on our social media, but also try to use it with my clients. And I think you must be pretty enlightened and mature and very emotionally healthy to treat your ex how you want to be treated versus how they deserve to be treated. I think that should be certainly a goal for everybody. And with amicable divorce, if needed, we have a team of people to help get you there, whether it's through, some therapy, a divorce coach, the right professionals, wellness, all sorts of things like that. So there's a team of people to help you get to that place where you feel emotionally that you can treat them how you want to be treated and not how they deserve to be treated, because it is such a difficult and emotional time. And I find many of our professionals, our speakers, those that help us with the network have been there and understand. I'm divorced. I'm a stepmother as well, so we live this reality. And so we're here to help everybody. So
that's right.
If you're here in the meeting, you're welcome to stick around. I want to thank Teresa Harlow for her presentation today. Absolutely excellent. It is going to be posted on our YouTube channel and on our blog, and you are always welcome to share that with your network, with your clients, with anybody who you think needs this really great resource, because maybe they've approached you with these questions and you can say to them very easily, I have a video for you to watch on introducing new people, and even have a book for you to get. And this is Teresa's book, Combative to Collaborative. And like I said, you can get it off of Amazon, where I got mine. And it's a great handy resource to have for any of your clients who are facing these issues, which if you're doing family law is probably all of your clients. So thank you again, Teresa. We're going to end the recording, but again, everybody's welcome to stick around. Thanks.
Yeah.